All right. And again, I'm Jeff Demansky, and I welcome everyone here tonight. Thank you for coming. I'm the Executive Director of Hudson Valley Energy, the nonprofit that was chosen by Jewel Community Power, which is the administrator that the Town of Highlands and the Village of Highland Falls has entered into agreement with to potentially launch what's called a Community Choice Aggregation Program for the town and the village. And I'll go into the details about that somewhat technical term of Community Choice Aggregation and explain how it fits and what the experience will look like as we move forward and to launch the program potentially. And on the assumption that it does launch, I'll give an understanding about what it looks like from a customer perspective, directly actually through the lens of the utility bill, which I found in conversations with lots of community members around the Hudson Valley, that it's very helpful. And I am involved with more than 16 communities now, 16 live programs and more that are getting ready to launch. So wonderfully, it's not just a theoretical opportunity for cities and towns and villages in the Hudson Valley. It's a real program that is showing some real benefits and delivering on the promise of what it was designed for. And I'll give you the technical background, but I'll start by just a brief kind of a verbal description, and I'm going to welcome the excellent team members and give them a chance to speak. But the one just brief description about what we'll talk about tonight is, for context, what we'll be talking about that the town has enabled itself and the village have enabled themselves to explore and potentially launch this community energy program. So it's based on opportunities that individual customers, utility customers in New York State have available to them as individuals. But, and for reasons I'll explain, there is benefit, significant benefit for these opportunities being offered through the leadership, through a partnership that the leadership in these communities establishes on behalf of their community members. Again, so these are individual opportunities, and I'll explain what I'm talking about in detail. And just know that the reason that the town and the village are exploring this is because there is benefit to doing it in this aggregation model, these communities joining together to offer these energy choices. And I'm joined by a number of great folks tonight, including, I know our liaison for the town is Richie Sullivan. And I know he's traveling, so it might be difficult for him to talk. But Richie, do you want to say hello? In brief, can you? I don't want to. If you can't, don't unmute. Just keep traveling. I think you're on the move.
Nope, I'm here. I'm just muting myself so you don't hear me breathing heavy.
That's great, Rich. Do you want to say anything more? Any more welcome? I'm going to make the rounds for the most part.
Oh, go ahead.
All right, great. And I'm also here with Olga. Olga, do you want to say hello? Who's been really instrumental in helping get this moving forward?
Yeah. Hi, everybody, and thank you, Jeff, for stepping up and doing this.
Oh, that's great. Anything more you want to say or share? I mean, this works well in a conversational structure too. So feel free to share more or to interject as we go through this.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've spoken with Jane and Karen and some others prior to this call, and I am just hoping that, they will spread the word and help us to spread the word with smaller groups and just to really, try to dispel any kind of, misinformation that might be floating around out there. And that's the purpose of these calls and these meetings. So stay tuned. We'll be having more, and I think you're going to really, see the value of what this program is all about. So thanks for coming.
That's one. Thanks, Olga. And that reminds me of the one ask that I make. This is not a sales, this is not like a timeshare sales thing happening here. But the one and only ask is that assistance, any kind of guidance or assistance that people can help with in terms of spreading the word in the community about this program. It's not terribly confusing, but there are points that commonly get confused. And the more we can give people opportunity to learn about it, and the more ways we can have to spread the information, the better it'll be for everybody. So thank you, Olga. And last, Joe DeWitt, who is our direct liaison for support of the program. Joe, do you want to say hello, Joe?
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Thank you and to Olga and Richie for inviting me to join the team. And I'm, obviously happy to help spread the word and honored to be part of the town council and bring this to the town council. As people start talking around the town and the village, obviously there's going to be probably negativity and misinformation. And like I said, we just got to make sure we communicate and keep it simple, present the facts, and we don't want to get mired down in again, don't overcomplicate it. I think it's a pretty good simple message, and it's a good program, and hopefully we can show people a savings when this gets enacted, and glad to be part of it. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you so much, Joe. And you really bring up a good point too about the expressions of concern that happened in and around the program. And I have to say that in many cases, to a very large degree, there's a lot of fairness. There's a lot of understanding about kind of the lack of trust that surrounds this space. And what we're talking about here is around energy choice, and the fact that utility customers in New York have the ability through their position as a customer to designate where in this case of our focus, where their electricity is made and how it's made and where it comes from. And this is an opportunity they've had for decades now, since the late 1990s, when the energy markets were deregulated. And there's many companies out there, and I'll talk about this more on the upcoming slides. And many people have tried and been in or are currently in that energy marketplace, have selected to contract individually with an energy supply company, often abbreviated ESCO, ESCO. And many of them have had really good experiences, but lots of folks have had bad experiences with fine print that resulted in unexpected outcomes, increased costs, a program that was fixed rate and turned variable, or contract fees that they didn't expect. And I bring that up because that is one of the significant reasons that this state has allowed this to be done by cities and towns and villages, is with the idea of consumer protection from those bad actors in the marketplace. And so it speaks to a reason why community leaders are exploring this program and how it can bring benefit, protecting their community members from the bad actors and missteps in the energy marketplace. And also, in addition to that, related to it is optimizing the benefit that they can yield from the opportunity in the energy marketplace. And that's a point I'll revisit on an upcoming slide. But with that, I'm going to jump in and start paying attention to the slides that are in front of you. And this is, again, it's an umbrella term that, working with Jewel, they call these are clean energy programs for the municipalities that become our partners. And so we're exploring a clean energy program for the town of Highlands to bring benefit of renewable energy, which is our focus. The reason that Jewel is doing this, and my nonprofit, Hudson Valley Energy, you can see our logos in the upper right. The reason we're doing this is because we are in the market. Our career is focused on helping the transition to a renewable powered grid in New York State. And so that's what we see as an opportunity through this program. So moving forward. So what is community power? When we talk about a community power program for the community. And this is it's a toolbox that Jewel is referring to when they talk about community power that has a couple of different opportunities in it. And if you would, please create mental space in your brain for two separate opportunities. One of them is going to be the main focus of what we talk about. These idea that a community can give a new choice, a tool for new choice in the energy marketplace. And one of them is electricity supply. And that will be the main focus of what we're working on right now with the town of Highlands and the village of Highland Falls. But the state has enabled through this platform of this term that I'll describe, the ability to also take advantage of and optimize and be protected from opportunities around solar decision-making. And as you guys probably already are thinking, aren't they related? They can very much be related. But I ask that you do create the mental space for two separate thoughts about electricity supply and solar decisions, because they are two separate and parallel opportunities that individuals and community members in a partner community can take advantage of. And I want to draw the distinction between them to make sure people understand that they are parallel opportunities, that somebody could do both, or either or neither, should they choose to, just to make the distinction because they're so commonly confused. And so that's one of the great benefits of what we get to do as a nonprofit partner in this effort, is to help people understand these distinctions in the energy marketplace, because it is a really exciting space that is going to get even more exciting, potentially more interesting as more opportunities are presented in the years to come. But right now, we're focused on these two opportunities in the toolbox, that the community has the ability to take command of energy decision-making on behalf of their community members, led by the community leaders, to focus on putting more renewable power onto the grid, transitioning communities to more clean energy, with a focus on these two tools, electricity supply and solar. And if you look at the bottom of the slide, the technical term from the state level, the community power policy instrument is called Community Choice Aggregation. And that's I won't use too many acronyms tonight, but that is the main instrument that we'll talk about, Community Choice Aggregation, or CCA. And the reason I do use the term Community Choice Aggregation, or CCA, is that a lot of communities are taking advantage of their state programs that award them for taking action that are clean energy decisions. And they use the term CCA in those programs. And so it becomes so interchangeable. I think it's important to still use that term and that acronym. All right, so let's get into exactly what is this policy instrument? What is CCA? In a simple description, CCA, or Community Choice Aggregation, it's really just a policy. And if you look at the bottom of the slide, it was authorized by the Public Service Commission in New York State in April of 2016. And it was a policy that enables municipalities, cities, towns, and villages to determine a default energy offering on behalf of their community members, residents, small businesses, and other institutions or customers within the municipal borders. So the energy offerings we're talking about, again, are renewable electricity, the supply, and community solar. And I'll make the distinction of how community solar differs from other types of solar. The reason the state did this, the reason the state empowered cities and towns and villages to act on behalf of their community members, again, if you remember what I said at the top, building on what individual utility customers could do on their own, this is in essence an aggregation model, basically giving a community the ability to form, if you allow the analogy, like a Costco or a BJ's wholesale model by grouping together to have the power of numbers in the marketplace, is for the three reasons described in the middle box on the slide. These are the three win-win-win aspects of the program, which one of them I've already talked about at the bottom. But the overlapping benefits are the idea that through this program in the energy marketplace for decisions about electricity supply and potentially for solar, you can create the potential to save money for your community members, a very competitive rate, and a rate that could even beat the non-renewable rate that the utility obtains for customers as an alternative. So money saving opportunity, number one. Number two, again, for our focus, you can support the increased generation by renewable sources on the New York State grid through this program. This aggregation of community members, with the majority of a community switching over automatically. This is what we talk about with default. This is structured as an opt-out program. And I will explain on an upcoming slide how this program, as an opt-out program, is just replacing an existing opt-out program that was established by the state back, again, when deregulation happened in the 90s. So we're replacing one opt-out with another. A state level opt-out is being replaced by a local decision-making opt-out. And it's being done so for the first reason of saving money, but two, particularly with a focus on promoting renewables, increasing a significant demand for more renewable production on the state, creating a soft cushion in a marketplace for more renewables to come onto the New York State grid. And three, As I mentioned already, it's done in a way that protects consumers. It is very simple and transparent, and it's a no contract situation for the community members. So there's complete flexibility. There's no direct cost to the community members, and there's no cost to the municipality either. So the town and the village do not have to pay anything for this program. It's truly, in that case, in this sense, a symbiotic program where everyone benefits, including the supplier who would be picked to be the potential provider of the fixed rate for the program. So these are the reasons that the state has promoted this. You'll see this slide, a very similar version of this slide towards the end of the presentation. And I'm going to revisit it to explain with a little more emphasis, to repeat a point I made about why community leaders should really focus on doing this, because I think it's an important aspect and a common question we get asked. But this is generally the reason why the state promoted it. And in essence, it is an encapsulation of why the community leaders are interested in exploring it, these three overlapping win-win-wins. So we're talking about electricity supply, if you remember my saying that, and solar as an opportunity. And what you're looking at, if you haven't looked at it in a while, I believe you are all likely Orange and Rockland customers. This is an Orange and Rockland utility bill. And I think it's useful to give a little tour of the Orange and Rockland utility bill to put in context, to show you exactly where these opportunities live on the utility bill. And this is, I think, generally a good thing for people to know about, to be given a tour, to understand that a utility bill is actually several bills in one. There's actually like 3 bills in one on this, in this one page that we see here. And what's nice about this, it really clarifies what doesn't change in terms of the relationship with Orange and Rockland. And I'll say that off the top, that people often are concerned or get confused and think that when this municipal program, if it launches, that this becomes a replacement for what Orange and Rockland, what their local utility does. And that is absolutely not true. There's no displacement of what Orange and Rockland does. And what Orange and Rockland does is deliver electricity to their customers. And I bring up that term again of deregulation from the 90s. And that's when the overall monopoly that utilities had in terms of generating power and delivering it to their customers was broken up. And because of that, the utility companies in New York can only make money. They're only allowed to make money on electricity delivery. To use another analogy, deregulation in the 90s basically transformed the utility companies into something akin to the United States Postal Service or UPS or FedEx. Those companies don't make the products they deliver. They deliver them reliably to their customers. That's what they get paid for. And that is a perfect analogy for what Orange and Rockland does. What's inside the red box inside on the slide right now, those are the line items that derive the revenue for Orange and Rockland for those delivery services. It pays for the infrastructure. It pays for their billing services. It pays for storm damage repair. That's what all of those line items, in essence, sum up to make sure that that reliable delivery happens. And again, that's the only section that they're allowed to make money on the bill. What else is on the bill? The section below it describes the electricity supply section. That is the section that is about how power is made, electricity in this case. So this is the money that, as an existing default, because of deregulation, it establishes that if somebody does not take advantage of a private marketplace of companies that are allowed to make money by generating power, or the middlemen companies, the energy supply companies, if an individual customer does not enter into a private contract for a supply, the existing default by state order is that the utility company will make that decision for their customers, but they're not allowed to make money on it. It's just a pass-through cost. And when the utility company makes the supply decision for their customers, you know that because you can see 3 line items inside the supply charges section. And so this adds up for, if you add up these three line items, these rates, these cents per kilowatt hour that are shown in this column where my arrow is, this adds up to be the rate for electricity supply charged by the utility for this particular month. And in this case, it's 5.906 cents per kilowatt hour. And that is the rate for this month. And it is, I think, never the same rate one month to the next. It always varies. That's one of the oddities of the utility companies, that they cannot fix a rate. They buy it basically on a daily basis. And then what you pay on your bill is the average of the month. All customers pay the same. There is no input by the customer into this rate if you're allowing the utility to make your decision on supply. So you have no input on the rate, so it varies all over the place, nor do you have input on the source. They buy from the open marketplace. And while they do, by state mandate, have to buy from the source, basically renewable sourcing, when they do make this decision, that is down in the teens. It is predominantly fossil generated or nuclear generated electricity that they buy for the most part. There is a slow progression, but it is still predominantly non-renewable supply that they obtain. So this is what it looks like in the supply section when the utility is making that choice. And as a preview, I will show you what it looks like on an Orange and Rockland bill when this changes, if a community is part of a community choice aggregation program. The last section, the third section to point out on this bill, is over here in the payments and adjustments section. This is, and it's not shown here, but if a customer has a solar system to generate electricity on their home or business, or if they do something called community solar, which is whereby they become a virtual owner of a portion of a solar field that's in Orange and Rockland territory, the benefit they would see from either of those decisions would be in this section. It is different. It's not in the supply section. So I start to draw the distinction right here between a solar decision about solar being on your home or business or being a community solar subscriber from the supply rate decision that lives over in this section. One thing you do not see up here in the solar section that helps you understand the distinction is you don't see the usage. You don't see the kilowatt hours of your monthly usage in this section, and you don't see a rate, because basically solar and community solar benefits, they are separate from how much electricity a customer uses in a particular month. The usage, you can see it here, 502 kilowatt hours for this particular customer, is always multiplied by a rate. And there are rates in delivery and in the supply sections. But around solar, it is really just a monetary transaction based on past usage, not current usage. All right, so I'm hoping that that two mental spaces you've created are starting to, you understand what belongs in each one there when we're talking about supply versus solar. So I'm revisiting it here, and I'm using a different analogy, but just to point out again, what are the supply related decisions that a utility customer has in New York? And this is a full menu option for an active CCA program. But in that supply section, there's three choices a customer can make. And this is redundant to what I've said already, but I'm just going to repeat it and repeat again the fact that we're replacing, if a community does a community energy program called Community Choice Aggregation, or CCA, it is just replacing an existing state determined default with a local default. So here's my menu analogy. Picture this column, this table being like a menu in a restaurant, and this is the appetizers section. And as most people do, they pick just one option when they're sitting down to a meal from the appetizer section. Same rule applies here. You can only pick one of these, but if you're in a community choice aggregation community, you can pick any of these at any time. You are not precluded, you are not cut off from making any of these decisions. And the decisions are, again, being very repetitive. The first choice established by deregulation as the default is if you do not take advantage of the second choice, which is the private marketplace, the utility company will make your supply decision for you. And that's what we talked about with the three line items. That is the New York State determined default. But anybody at any point in time can engage with one of the private third-party supply companies out there, or energy supply companies or ESCOs and enter the market. Example companies that are out there are like Green Mountain Energy or Ambit or Viridian. There are literally dozens of companies that are offering these options to customers. If and when a community launches a community choice aggregation program, in essence, what happens is a community, typically in partnership with other communities, aggregating together communities, issue a competitive proposal opportunity for these private market suppliers. And they pick one with very strict requirements to be the supplier to provide a fixed rate for the community members, which becomes the new default option for anybody in choice one who has that existing situation. It becomes their new default option. And it's a fixed rate for a multi-year period. And for us, we focus on it being a fixed rate for electricity generated by renewable power, solar, wind, or hydropower from New York State sources. If and when a program launches, note that folks who are in the second choice option, this third-party supply option, they don't change from where they're at. They've already made a choice that is different from the original default. And so they're not removed from the decision they made. So they do not need to opt out of the CCA choice when the program launches. But anybody in the community, including somebody who might have a third-party supply contract when the program launches, if and when it launches, they can join and take advantage of the CCA supply rate. They just have to end their supply contract and then contact us. That's what my nonprofit does, and we can help them into the program or point them to the website where they can do it themselves. But these are the three options available. And again, just to revisit it, we're replacing one default with another default. We're not forcing a default on community members. We're just replacing an old default for which they had no input with one where there is truly local input on what that supply fixed rate is. Now I'm expanding my analogy to the entree section, again, to draw the distinction between supply and the supply decisions we just talked about and how it differs from a solar decision that a customer might choose to make within a community or outside of a CCA community. And again, I repeat that these are choices that individual utility customers can make in or out of a CCA program. So consider this the appetizer menu, our electricity supply, and our entree menu here is a solar section. And just as to play upon my analogy, just like in a restaurant with the entrees and the appetizers, you can mix and match any way you want. You can pick any appetizer and you can pick any entree in combination that you want. The same holds here. The same idea applies. You can mix and match these choices in any way you want. The solar choices are, A, nobody has to do anything about solar. So customers who haven't made a solar choice and do not want to make a solar choice don't have to. That's choice A. And they could take advantage of any one of the supply choices with that decision to do nothing about solar. Or many people have, and many people might still in the future, put a system directly on their home or business, put solar panels on their roof or on a stand on their property. So that's choice B. And choice C, and again, don't forget, you can't mix and match the one side. You can only pick one from each of these tables. If you do not have solar on your home or business, by state design, you can do community solar. And it's a way that people can take advantage of the expansion of solar production in New York State without having to put it on their home or business. But you can't do both. You can't have solar on your home or business and do community solar. And I'll say it just one more time. Any one of these options in each of these tables, one from each table, can be mixed and matched with the other table in any combination. So people say, can I do community solar and do the CCA supply program? Yes, you can. And again, remember the bill, which I'm going to bring up again, to remember how they are different and that they live on different sections of the bill. And the wonderful thing about that, it's two separate ways that somebody can have influence on the amount of renewables on the New York State grid. So a little more detail about the CCA supply option and the community solar option, just for more understanding. The CCA supply program The focus is on providing an option for a low, very competitive fixed rate for renewable production in New York State. Community solar, if you remember my saying from the bill, it is not a rate. It's about basically a monetary discount based on a symbiotic relationship with the developer. It's just a guaranteed monetary discount. Note the word guaranteed there. That's a really wonderful thing about community solar. The companies offering it, they are able to, because it is a monetary benefit, guarantee basically discounts each month for the customers, which is different than the CCA supply. It is a low and competitive fixed rate for renewables, but there can be times, and I'll show you a chart, where our program rate can be higher than the utility rate. But the expectation, and what's proven to be true for the majority of our programs in the Hudson Valley, is that our program rate is better than the non-renewable utility rate, but it's not guaranteed. And that's, I just want to be very frank about the way this program works. All right, so one more distinction, and I'm just repeating what I said. The supply decision, if somebody takes advantage of the program's fixed rate for renewables on the supply side, it is a New York State benefit. It's basically paying only for renewable production from New York State sources. So it has a benefit of increasing the ratio of renewables on the New York State grid. Community solar has the additional benefit of, if somebody chooses to do it, of actually supporting a local solar farm. And again, the reason I bring this up, for the most part, is that they are so commonly confused. And people are hearing a lot about community solar these days. And so people often confuse it with what we're doing with the focus on the electricity supply program through the town and village partnership. So forgive me for this heavy-handed distinction effort here, but I hope it brings clarity. I'm going to just kind of show you what it looks like directly on a bill when you're in the program, but I'm going to stop to see if there's any questions.
I had a question.
Sure. Okay, go ahead.
Over at the solar, community solar, and where it has adjustments. So on the bill, can we go back to the bill?
Well, let me go forward to the bill, actually.
If a person has invested in community solar, then they're going to get a discount on their bill in that portion of it?
That's right. That's the way community solar works. It's a monetary discount that's in their payments and adjustments section. And I can show you that. That's what I'll do. I'll show you on a bill coming up. All right, so let me step forward here. And I think this, hopefully, Jane, this could bring some clarity to what we're talking about. I thought it would be useful to see not only, here's what I shared before, kind of the highlights of the 3 sections of the bill. And again, this was non-program benefit on any section of the bill. So what does this look like for someone who's in the program and is doing community solar? And we can show you that right here. So this is a bill from a customer in Rockland County who is part of one of our active programs. And you can see still the delivery charges section here. And this is unaffected by our program. Again, this is a section that Orange and Rockland makes money on. The supplier charges are really simplified on this page, because many of you might know that if you have a third-party supply choice made, or if you make a third-party supply choice, you have a separate page of your bill, which I'll show you on the next slide, which has the details about the supply choice made. So this is someone who's in a community choice aggregation program for supply, and their bill just shows this one line for supply charges on this page. So if there's the one section here too for the customer is also in community solar, and this is on the right side of the bill. And you can see that this adjustment and what the state in its wonky term calls a value stack credit. This is the credit for being a community solar subscriber. And you can see it's this negative number shown on the bill in the payments and adjustments section. So this is what it looks like for someone who's in the CCA supply in their community. This happens to be somebody from NIAC, and they are a community solar subscriber. And just on the next page, this is the additional page for having a selected supplier. It shows you the selected rates, and the rate for the program is for NIAC is 7.2 cents, and it's the same rate. Everything's included in this rate, and it gets multiplied by their usage for their total supply charges. And wonderfully, a little different than it is in Central Hudson territory, the information about the supplier indicates that you are in the partnership program that we established with NIAC and the other communities in Rockland. It's called the Rockland Community Power Program, and it says that here. And we picked Constellation New Energy as a supplier. So this is the rate that Constellation New Energy, who was selected competitively, is providing for the Rockland Community Power. And it repeats over here, you can see the term CCA. So it's very clear by looking at your bill that you're in the program and what your rate is. And this is everything for the supply portion of the program. There's no additional fees, no charges. There's never a penalty to opt in or opt out of the program. If the program launches, anyone who's in the program, they just see the program rate, which is the same rate. And for NIAC, it's a 2-year contract. Every month, the 24 months of that contract, 7.238 cents for folks in NIAC, multiplied by whatever usage they had for that month for their supply charges. All right, let me take that question now. All right, so I'm not too far from the end. So I just want to revisit again, this is, except for the box on the right, this is the same slide that I started off with where we defined what community choice aggregation is. I have the definition again, emphasizing that it's a policy that a municipality can take advantage of. These are the 3 overarching reasons, the win-win-win scenario, the idea that you can create money-saving potential while supporting renewable generation in New York State in numerous ways that protect the community members from the marketplace bad actors and missteps. But to sum it up for community leaders, why they should pursue this program, why they should have interest in pursuing it, we encapsulate these 3 benefits really in these 2 ideas for the community leaders. And it begins with the third on the left, starting out, you are protecting your community members from bad actors and missteps in the marketplace. And what I've discovered in conversations with folks is that over the last 20 odd years that this energy supply marketplace has existed for private customers, most people either have had a bad experience or know somebody who has. And there's been targeting of certain populations, including senior citizens and the like, by some of these energy marketplaces. The idea of this program is it's an agreement at the municipal level, and community members are protected without a contract. It's like a public benefit, like a public swimming pool analogy again, but they're given access to this fixed rate with no fees and no restrictions, complete flexibility to come and go at their will. So they have a complete protection from the marketplace. And second, the idea of grouping together, the power of numbers, is that you optimize the benefit. The rate for renewables, as I'll show you on the chart coming up, is very, very good, very competitive. And if there's a community solar option, which is potentially in the future, again, it optimizes what the opportunities are for the community members, kind of maximizing the discounts that people could get for that. So it's basically just arguing that, that I argue that community leaders, this is what you should do for community. You should protect them and you should optimize the benefits they can get from what exists versus what they could do on their own. And it reduces the decision-making hurdles that they have in front of them. All right, so just a couple more slides here. This is the process, and I won't go into too much detail. I'm glad to come back to this, but this is the 13 steps to launching a program. And just to let you know, in brief, it starts with the municipality passing a local law. That's required by the Public Service Commission. And the village and the town have both done the local law passing, and they both picked an administrator, the second step, which is required under the state regulation. To do a program, to explore it, you need to determine how you're administering it. And what the village and town have done is chosen Jewel Community Power to be the administrator. So we're proceeding into the public awareness building step. All the steps inside this box, these are my no commitment steps. This is the brown box surrounding these first half dozen steps are the exploration steps. There is no requirement as in any of these steps that a program actually launches. These are the steps that the town and the village are involved in to make sure it makes sense before they launch. What comes at the end of this no commitment step box is designing the request for proposals. And it's based on the marketplace and the willingness of community members to proceed with the program. So where are we right now in the town? And we are just after the point of picking the administrator. So we're about to enter into our formal process of public outreach and awareness building. And this meeting tonight is part of it, to start to build awareness. But we're going to start an official 60 days very soon in terms of public education and outreach to help spread awareness and make sure people understand what this program is all about. And then we will proceed through the rest of the steps and launch a program if it makes sense. I put at the bottom of the slide that there's no direct cost to the town or community members. This is something I said before, but it's a really important point to make. All right, so that, and again, I'm happy to talk about this more, including we can talk about the timeline. But in essence, if all proceeds on the schedule that we're in conversation with community leaders, this program active bullet, the live program at the bottom of this list, should happen around November of this year. That's when people will see if it works, and if we decide to proceed, a fixed utility rate on their Orange and Rockland bills. This is just showing a map of where other communities in New York State that have passed CCA local laws. There's more than 150 that have done it. And just it emphasizes the point that it's a movement, and it's quite a well-established and well-tested model. And so how is the program doing? These are the two active programs in the lower section of the slide that my nonprofit is part of. There's the Hudson Valley Community Power Program in the Central Hudson Territory, and the Rockland Community Power Program that's in Orange and Rockland Territory. And I'll show you the performance of these programs, including the communities involved, in the next couple of slides as we wrap up here. So this is the Rockland Community Power Program. It's a partnership that includes these 6 communities, all who've chosen Jewel Community to be their administrator, and my nonprofit supporting the program. And when we launched the program, it was a 2-year supply contract that started in November 2020. The program rate for 100% renewable energy is this flat green line. That's about 7.3 cents per kilowatt hour. You might remember that from the utility bill slide I showed. So we offer, and the default for these communities is a 100% renewable fixed rate for electricity supply from New York State sources. And there's also a standard rate. And this is the purple line here. We did offer a second rate for those folks who want to just save money. It's a mix that's similar to what the utility provides in terms of predominantly non-renewables, but it is an option, but it's not the default for the communities. The red line is what a private customer could expect to find, or at least at the time I did this calculation, for a comparable 100% renewable sourced fixed rate for electricity supply. It's up above 9 cents per kilowatt hour, well above our program rate. So emphasizing the idea that this town program is far better than a private customer could do. Now the movement lines, the lines that are showing all the movements. So the yellow line is the month-to-month utility rate from Orange and Rockland. So the question I was being asked before is, how does this compare to Orange and Rockland's rates? What is the utility rate by comparison? The line to look at for that simpler comparison is this blue line, which is the running average that I've kept month by month since the program started. So the average and the utility rate were the same on the first month of the program. And then it went up as the rate went higher above our program rate. You can see there are months when the program rate was higher than the utility rate. In January 2021, the utility rate was down here. But follow the blue line of this roller coaster of the utility rate, and you can see that the average has risen well above our program fixed rates. As of March 22, where these pretty high rates have happened, our program is delivering on that win-win scenario in terms of cost savings versus the utility rate, and even for 100% renewables. So it's truly working. People are paying less for 100% renewable than they would have paid by the blue line for non-renewable power. So working quite well. Similar color scheme for the program in Central Hudson Territory. We did a 2-year contract that ended in 2021. Then we started a 3-year contract for 100% renewable rates. It's about 6.5 cents. It's a little squished here in terms of the lines, but the color coding is the same. It's squished because of the spike that happened in February in Central Hudson's utility rate, where it went up to about 22 cents per kilowatt hour. But in essence, again, compare the flat lines. Our 100% renewable default fixed rate is the green one. to the blue line, which is the running average of the utility rate. And you can see just how significantly better our program rate is than the non-renewable utility rate. Even before these crazy price spikes in January, February, and March, our program was already doing better than the utility average. And so and these are the communities that are involved in that partnership. So in essence, that's the nature of the program, but you get the deal in terms of what's happening with this. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen and ask people to unmute if you'd like, and hopefully cooperatively to ask questions.
Hi, this is Karen. I have one quick question. There was a lot of information delivered, and I might have missed something. I have a solar array on my home. It doesn't give as much as I would like because of trees in the area. However, the main purpose for that solar arrangement was in order to get a Tesla battery as a backup for any kind of an energy, an electricity outage. So that was the purpose of it. However, that aside, I kind of missed a little bit on this, and if you could repeat that, how would this program work with my solar system that already exists?
Well, it's typical that your solar system is based on a net metering arrangement. In essence, you have a negotiated rate for any overproduction for your system, where basically you are netting out consumption that you have, and if you overproduce, you get paid a wholesale rate for the overgeneration. This program would have no impact on the arrangement that you made at the time you established your system. It works in parallel, as it does with all the other solar decisions. In essence, there are likely, especially based on what you said, there are months where you are not producing enough compared to how much you're probably consuming. And so at those months, you are buying from the utility. And if you're in the original situation, you're buying at the utility rate. If and when a program launches in the town of Highlands and you're part of the Highlands program, those months when you buy electricity, you would buy it at the fixed program rate. And so based on what we've seen in performance, ostensibly, it would, one, be saving you money compared to what you would pay to the utility for non-renewables. And two, you would be doubling up your contribution of benefit to the grid from your own renewable production. And then you'd only be paying for renewable production in New York State for the additional electricity that you needed. And if you are overproducing, you are still getting paid back at the rate that you negotiated when you established your system.
That's actually sounds quite lovely. I'll take it.
Excellent. Sorry, Richard, do you have a question?
No, just real quick, Jeff. I wanted to thank you. I didn't make many comments. I firmly believe in this, and we had the email discussing little things that might be a little bit of a hindrance. I have to leave the meeting now. I want to thank you for your time. And as I requested before, one of these I'd like to be put onto our website for people to see. And I'll be in the next one also. So thank you so much for your time. I have to go.
My pleasure.
I actually have a question.
So this is Mindy Kimball here. I just I had a comment, and I just wanted to thank you, Jeff, for your time. I feel like I understand everything that you explained. I've been in and out of different communities where I'm paying electric bills, and I when I was actually paying them, right now the Army pays my electric bill, and I have no choice. I'd love to get solar, I'd love to get renewables, but the Army doesn't let me choose that. And I'm really excited about the prospect of giving people that choice. And I think it's going to be a great thing for the community. I'm just super happy that we're bringing this here, and we've got folks in the community supporting it, and it just seems like you said, a win-win-win. So thanks for your time explaining that.
Thank you so much, Mindy. And it does take time, and I'm glad we recorded it so people can revisit this at their leisure. And I'll just look forward to every opportunity that we have to explain it again. It does take some time to understand what's going on, but it really is relatively simple and elegant. And it's a beautiful thing that the community leaders are doing on behalf of their community members to kind of reduce the decision-making burden around this, to really, again, optimize the offers. But thank you so much, Mindy.
Excuse me, Jeff,
Jeff,
just a
It
quick
was
question.
actually
Where would I find the recording so that I could listen again? I'd like to review it myself.
I think we're going to post it probably to the town and village website.
Okay,
And then certainly, yeah, I'm pretty sure that there will be the CCA page where you can find a link for them there.
that's great. I would like to just see it again, just to allow it to sink in a little bit more.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Jane, I'm Jane, and I just wanted to say thank you to Jeff, because I liked having the screens about the bill on there, because I got, and the chart too, because I was able to understand, having been one of those individuals, having been one of those people that individually signed up with an energy, a different energy supply. And, you know, having found that my electricity was considerably more than if I had stayed with Orange and Rockland, it's really good for me to now understand that the way that community aggregation works is that because we're such a large group, the utilities can offer that lower rate. I think that's what I'm starting to understand from this.
Correct. Yes.
Right, okay. Okay, so I just wanted to say thank you, because I was glad to understand how that happens.
My pleasure. Any other questions? All right. Well, then I'll just thank everyone for being here tonight. I will stop the recording